My,
And my prediction is he's going to go out like November went out yesterday on the Northeast Corridor, making a whole lot of noise, a whole lot of threats of tornadoes, but not doing much of nothing. Because
mm,
now it's December. The calendar is flipped. And we're going to talk about that today on the Power Hour, brought to you each and every day by Power Interfaith, which is
hmm
our primary sponsor. And yet, our views, though we're connected with the organization, are really our views. Sometimes they own them, sometimes they don't. I'm sure that sometimes people from Power listen to it like, oh my God, what are they talking about this morning? That
hmm
does not reflect what we believe
That's right.
because these are opinions. It's an opinionated talk show. We only have an hour, so we're going to get it in quick. This morning, sitting across from me is Bishop Dwayne David Royster.
All right, and sitting across from me is the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler.
And the glue that holds it all together is Kawesa. She's there in studio, making sure that everything works in this remote virtual environment as we broadcast from basements and attics and sometimes park cars in parking lots because it's the only place that's quiet. You all will never know the places where WURD hosts actually host their shows. Whenever you see a virtual background, some people are more honest. They'll show you like where they are, their bedroom, their office at home. But when you see these virtual backgrounds behind people like us, that ought to tell you something. That where are they today? Man. So listen, folks can check us out on Facebook this morning. Check us out on YouTube,
Right.
WURD. You can listen to us at WURDradio.com, 900 AM, 96.1 FM. If you have TuneIn, like with Alexa, just say, hey, Alexa. Oh, I'm sorry, you guys. I did that yesterday. My bad.
Mm.
I know, again, somebody right now is like, stop doing that. So the name that shall not be mentioned lest I turn all your devices on at home. In fact, I'm sorry, I just have to do
It's like
this.
Baltimore, right? You can't say the
Right,
name.
right. Watch this. Alexa, turn off the lights.
That's funny.
So a lot of people are laughing and somebody is really, really angry right now. Like, you know, you
Why did you
mess
do
with
that to me?
my 21st century clapper. So listen, we got a lot to cover this morning. So man, hey, did you check out the game last night?
No, I just saw that politics is my sport. I tell you this all the time. Politics
No.
is my sport. I do not follow sports like that except sumo. And so let me just say that I posted on the weekend to the Philadelphia Eagles saying that Colin Kaepernick is still available. You should hire him so we can win. So that was what I.
Well, see, that's why I wanted to talk about this today. I know like on Friday, like I know you don't do sports. I know this, but it's Tuesday. But seriously, in all honesty, seriously. So yesterday, the Eagles looked horrible once again,
Mhm.
and I know Eagle fans will be mad at me because, of course, longtime Philadelphia resident now, but lifetime Raider fan. You're not going to take that away from me. And yes, we look horrible too. So I know I'm the pot calling the kettle black. I have no business talking about you the way we got our heads beat in by Atlanta of all people. But that being said, this is what caught my attention last night. So a lot of people are blaming the loss and really this lost season of the Eagles on Carson Wentz, their star quarterback, their starting quarterback. And now also people are starting to spread the love or hate, that is, to Doug Peterson, the coach, for keeping Carson in.
Right.
Now they have a tremendous person that they drafted, Jalen Hurts, right? I mean, this guy is like just he is a star in the waiting, and so Jalen he's not white.
Mhm.
And there is a way in which, um, like white announcers who typically are former players and former coaches, if you listen to them, the way they defend and rationalize why white quarterbacks should keep their jobs, um, especially when there's a black quarterback in the wings, it is really frustrating. So last night I'm listening to the game.
Hmm.
And I don't even know who was calling the game. And because I was on calls, Zoom calls all night. And by the time I got to the game, I didn't catch the voice of one of the announcers. And he started going on about, I know people in Philadelphia want Carson gone, but, he's done so much for this program.
What? Even I know that's not true.
Let me take a sip of my coffee real quick.
Even even I know that's not true, and I don't even follow the sport like that. But I'm like, we had a choice between Nick Foles and Carson Wentz, and even I back then said, y'all just need to keep Nick Foles. He got us through 2 Super Bowls. He got us to 1 win, and 1 loss, but he fought the good fight. We need to keep Nick Foles. Everybody's like, no, we need to go with the young blood. The young blood untested, and the young blood hadn't finished the season. No. Anyway, we went the wrong direction.
Well, so right. So Craig is so here's Craig on Facebook says very painful to watch the game. Wentz isn't the total problem. There's no pass protection. So I'd agree. I mean, it's never on one player, and so I don't like it when people put that much pressure on one player. It's a team, and it's not always just about the coach or the front office, but there are times to get something going, you got to make a big shakeup. And one of the best places to try is with the quarterback. So you've got this guy who was just outstanding in, during his college career waiting. You're in a division where literally a team that wins 5 games might win the entire division, 5 of 16 games. I mean, I got a feeling that whoever wins this division will not break 500. They will, at the most, have 7 wins. Everyone is terrible. Dallas is terrible. The Washington football team, formerly known after a racial slur, they're terrible. The Giants are terrible. I mean, so this is the time when you pull the trigger and experiment, right?
Yeah.
So they're making this argument. I'm like, wait, I'm sorry, did Carson Wentz win a Super Bowl? No, I don't think so. That was Nick Foles. And let's be real, after his injury, he has never been the same. Now, this brings me, I bring this up because, again, I know you're not into sports, but it makes a larger point, and you hinted at it just a moment ago. Let's go back to the West Coast for a minute, almost West Coast. In Denver this last week, because of COVID-19, so he had the triangulation of COVID,
Right.
pre-existing racism in the NFL and Colin Kaepernick and police violence against black people, all coming into focus in one place. COVID took out their entire quarterback.
That's right.
All of them.
Yeah.
The starting QB, the second string, and the third string, all 3 were deemed ineligible on Sunday. Most of the time, people would just forfeit. Denver plays a guy to start who played quarterback last in high school. Of course, they got their heads kicked in by the Saints. And I'm saying, wait a minute. You guys are literally right now wearing little strips around the back of your helmet that says, "Stop the hate." You got Black Lives Matter painted in the end zone. You have come out, Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioners come out and said almost everything except we were absolutely, that we deserve to give, Cap his job back.
Right.
And in this moment, you are telling me that Kaepernick still can't get a job?
Nope. That is the problem. Kaepernick cannot get a job. And I tweeted this. I literally tweeted this weekend. I was like, Eagles, you want to win? Get Kaepernick. Can we get a quarterback, please? Please.
How do you explain that? I mean, seriously. Like, how do you explain it to your children?
Man, it's the hate, bro. It's the hate.
Huh?
And they probably feel like they did right by him because they gave him a couple of dollars in a negotiation from the lawsuit that he had against them. I mean, they had to admit that he was wrong, and I guess they for lack of a better term, they blackballed him so that nobody will pick him up. But I mean, there was an article out this last week that was talking about the fact that Colin Kaepernick is letting NFL know he's available and he's staying in shape. He's exercising every day. He's working out with a coach, not a NFL coach, but he's working out every day with a strength conditioning coach and keeping himself in shape, ready to come back. And nobody's pulled that trigger.
Bro, let me just say this. See, this is why the NFL gets such a bad rap. And this is why we always look side-eye at America when it comes to race and racism, right? So Colin Kaepernick cannot get a job. In spite of the fact, I mean, listen, Denver would go into a game,
That's
and
right.
their GM is John Elway. One
Hmm.
of the best quarterbacks ever who knows how important it is to have a QB under the center. But they would go into a game without a quarterback rather than to look and bring Carson in. I mean, I'm sorry, to bring Cap in for a couple of weeks or whatever to make the transition. And yet, with all of his buffoonery and the crap that this dude has made, Antonio Brown, who the Raiders were counting on, picked him up from the Steelers. He completely throws that in the toilet. Antonio Brown can go out and just cut up and continue to do whatever. And now this guy, and I'm not knocking him for getting a job,
Hmm.
but Antonio Brown is playing with Tampa Bay on a team with Tom Brady that's going to go to the playoffs because Tom Brady said, I need AB. Get me AB.
Hmm.
So AB can be a pretty much horrible person off the field
Right.
and do whatever he wants, on record and allegedly. But AB can always get back in to play. And yet, a guy who never did anything wrong. Let us remember, Cap never did anything wrong
Nope.
except take a knee, which now everyone does, and Cap is continually vilified. This is America, my friend.
Well, it is the epitome of racism, right? Like everybody's now taking a knee. They wearing Black Lives Matter T-shirts and doing all other kind of things, supporting Black lives. But the guy that started the movement in the NFL, right? One of the guys, he wasn't the only one. There were others, but the rest of them stopped. Um, Now is, vilified. Can't get a job. Can't get back into the league. Won't get picked up by anybody. Is making it clear that he's available. He did his own personal combine what was last year, and yet nobody has thought to call him. Several of the teams could
Mhm.
use a really solid quarterback right now. Um, Now, part of the challenge is though he has been out of the league for what, 3, 4 years now. That a lot of people are sometimes afraid to take a chance, but you could probably
Out
you
of
could
the
offer
league.
yeah.
I mean, come on, man. The Raiders brought Marshawn Lynch back after being out for a year. I mean,
That's a year though. It's a year versus being out for, So, and I'm not making excuses for the
no, no,
NFL. I
I'm
mean,
agreeing with you. I
yeah,
know.
but I'm just saying that, he's coming back, but he's in shape. I mean, he looks good. If you see him, he looks like he's in prime condition,
Yeah.
and he just needs to somebody just needs to give him a chance, get out in the field, give him a chance, and let him go out there and do what he does. But they don't want to do that. They are afraid.
Well, right. And but see, this is how systemic racism works. And this is why you have to continually keep lifting these issues up. I'm thankful, on mornings like this for an opportunity to have a place to talk about this because aside from black newspapers and, black websites like The Root and places like that, or Black Talk Radio, you're not going to hear these conversations,
Mm.
right? I mean, you may get a little mention, but nobody's going to go in deep to actually bring this out. And it's all tied together. I mean, the things that we enjoy, the entertainment part has a way of expressing, these deeply seated problems within our, society. And they come out in these fascinating ways where, like, again, like I said, to try to keep Carson in a job, a guy's going to talk about how much he's done for the Eagles. Dude, he's not even the fifth best quarterback they've ever had.
No, no, I
He,
don't, I don't, I
come
don't
on.
think he's been a good quarterback at all. I think he's been absolutely
That's,
terrible. He
that's
hasn't
my
completed
point.
the season, has he?
Yeah, he's completed some, but I mean they haven't been great.
No,
But I
he's
mean,
not.
yeah. I mean, look, dude, Randall Cunningham was a better quarterback. I mean,
Look,
let's
what
talk
was
talk
the
about the
last
truth.
game that they went to? Jeffrey Lurie didn't even go to the game. They noted that on the news. They're like, Jeffrey Lurie's not here.
Jeff was like, I'm going to Red Lobster.
It
Well,
was
he didn't go to Red Lobster, but
no, no.
So, all right. So listen, this all really ties back in again to the current state of activism in the community. A story came out yesterday. I should put it in the chat, where I was actually cited, but it's one that I really like. Typically, I mean, I see those stories and I just kind of, you blow right by them. You and I, people are asking our opinions all the time on things. But the WHYY, the NPR station, did a story about the current state of activism. And are there concerns among activists and organizers that, people will fall back once the headlines retreat? And once we're no longer talking about Walter Wallace or George Floyd or Breonna Taylor, and do we feel some kind of way? And let's be honest. There won't be thousands of people that you can call on to like roll to a city hall hearing on police violence, or a hearing on, Sherelle Parker's, bill that's turned into a law to end stop and frisk, or Catherine Gilmore Richardson's, bill around the police contract and arbitration, or Isaiah Thomas's, bill around, stopping these little like broken window type of, stops that if you don't have a real reason to stop a car, you can't pull it over, or Curtis Jones's police oversight bill that's now become a law. That when you talk about the stuff that has to push the machine of democracy forward and being there, you're not going to always have those throngs of people when there's not a big, sexy, and I'm not using that in the positive sense, but this big kind of like event that is easy to like just bring people out on a hashtag. And so in these moments, there can be some resentment from like the activist community, like where's everybody at now? And yeah,
I mean, so let's organizing. So let me just separate. There's a difference between organizing and activism, right? And I think we need to clarify that. So activism oftentimes is done in response to something that has happened. And I think it's a very important part of our society. But then there's organizing, right? And organizing's got a cycle to it. There's oftentimes you get to a crescendo of activity, of things that have happened. And then once you win, you actually have to begin to go through a process of evaluating where you've been and then kind of figuring out what next steps are. And so there's a life cycle to like these moments. And I think people don't realize that. They think it's supposed to be constantly in the streets, actually banging everything down, bringing everything down over and over again. And there's a life cycle to it. And once you understand the cycle, you'll understand that after a big crescendo, like 2020 was a massive crescendo, both with the election, with the uprising here in Philadelphia about winning the ballot initiatives. Now that you've done those things, now it's like you got to go do the detail work. And the detail work can't get done in the streets, right? The detail work has to get done in hearings. It has to get done by pressuring political figures to do the right thing, by the laws to implement them in the way that makes sense. And that actually requires a little bit, it still requires some intention and intensity, but it happens in a very different way. It happens in a way that you and Pastor DeBose and the Live Free team have been doing by hosting the town hall meetings, by going to meet with council members and bringing and telling them what it is that you expect to happen in these bills now moving forward, right? And that doesn't go in the streets. It only goes into the streets if and when they refuse to do what you've already forced them to do. So right. I just think that, we have this activist mentality, which is cool, but it's also extremely reactionary, whereas you have an organizing mentality and an organizing cycle, which is actually proactive and forces a reaction. It's not reacting to a reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's keep talking about that on the other side of the break, folk. And put your comments in the chat on Facebook Live. Hit the share button for us as well on Facebook Live. Let's continue this conversation, and because it is all connected. We'll be right back. This is the Power Hour. Don't go anywhere.
Step by Step Home Care Professionals is one of Philadelphia's fastest growing Black-owned home care employers, and they are hiring. If you are a caring, nurturing, and compassionate person who enjoys helping people in need, Step by Step Home Care Professionals is looking to hire you. Go to sbshome.care to complete an employment application. That's sbshome.care, or call 610-321-3108 for more information and ask for Monet. Step by Step Home Care Professionals is hiring today.
Hey, onWURD family. Our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorososbaking.com for details.
Einstein Healthcare Network salutes all those on the front lines, keeping our communities healthy and safe. Thank you for all that you do. And to everyone doing your part by staying at home, we thank you. Working together, we will continue to slow the spread of coronavirus. Einstein is here for you, just like we've always been.
In celebration of radio icon Cody Anderson.
Hey guys, this is Eric Nixon, production coordinator and producer of Evening Words and the Envy McKee Show here at WURD Radio. I have special memories of Cody Anderson while working here at WURD Radio. One was during the 990 movement launch, where Cody had instructed me as the producer to cut the microphone and have dead air during that time. To Cody's point, he wanted to help people realize what it would sound like without a voice in the community. Just proving the point that us being on air was pivotal to continuing our contribution to the Black voice of America.
Join us for the 5th Annual Empowerment Experience as we honor and celebrate radio icon Cody Anderson and his contributions to independent Black media. RSVP now at wordradio.com and join us live on air Friday, December 4th from 1 p.m. till 4 p.m. exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on wordradio.com, the WURD Radio app, or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. Sponsored by Pico, Keystone Plus, Pennsylvania Lottery, Einstein, Dedicated Senior Medical Centers, and TML Communication. Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good morning. Pretty good ride here in Philadelphia this morning. No major problems early on 95 southbound northeast down through the Vine Expressway, looking good. Westbound Vine Expressway, Lake Parkway through the Schuylkill Expressway. Schuylkill westbound University through the Vine. Watch for slowing through that work zone. Eastbound side moving fine. PA Turnpike, Blue Route 476 in pretty good shape. In New Jersey, 4255, 295. A quiet start there as well. In Philadelphia, looking good on the area bridges. For more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. Jim Bachman with your Philadelphia area traffic.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent Black media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour with Mark Kelly Tyler and Dwayne David Royster. We are here Monday through Fridays from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to bring you the latest in news, happenings around Philadelphia, and of course, our opinion. And so we deeply appreciate each and every one of you that choose to get up early in the morning and watch and listen and watch with us. Thank you to all of our listeners that are hitting us up on Facebook Live this morning and posting their comments. Those are the folk that are out there on YouTube Live. We're actually going to figure out a way to get YouTube Live and Facebook Live at the same time so we can always see what's going on in both places. And so we're actually engrossed in a deep conversation this morning about Colin Kaepernick, Eagles, and racism in the NFL. And now kind of jumping to this particular movement talking about organizing and activism from the article that was in the WHYY News, which actually featured the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler. You want to talk more about that article? Yeah.
Well, it's more about the subject. You know, I mean, it's, you know, you can read the article yourself, but and it also quotes a person who was kind of new to activism, and you know, so again, shout out to HYY and the work that they're doing over there. They're putting out some really good work these days, but you know, I think that the larger issue is that for those of us who are, you know, some of us are being compensated for being out there. I have not always been, but, you know, here recently, you know, with the work that we're doing, Live Free, as it takes on more intensity. Elder Melanie and I, you know, the co-directors, and you're, you know, executive director for Power, and other people who are around these organizing tables, that I think that it becomes incumbent upon us. And then there are many clergy who fit this description. And this is how I've always felt as a clergy person, that because, you know, we are receiving our checks from our congregations, and we don't have the same kind of fear and concern that others might have about when you speak out in public and when you, get involved in things like there's going to be instant blowback at your job. That means then that it is our job to a degree to kind of, step into the gap and to be there. And I just know that I notice, and you hear this all the time, folk who kind of get upset sometimes about the fact that now there's a flood of people and a renewed interest in kind of new, quote unquote, leaders popping up. But I think that's great. I just think it's great. And, bring the masses when you need those big crowds. But you and I know this, and you laid it out so well on the last segment. If folk missed it, you can go back and replay it. The difference between organizing and activism and how the two work hand in hand. You have to have both.
Right.
You cannot move the agenda forward that we're talking without having activism and without having organizing. And in my opinion, the best know how to like pivot and to do, both of those things. But you know this so well. It doesn't take 5,000 people to get a city council person to move on something. If you got 100 people who make targeted phone calls or emails or who show up to a virtual hearing and it's like, oh crap, this Microsoft meeting Teams meeting is full today. Where all these people come from? Yeah. And they talk about, we have X amount of people watching on channel 64 today. It's like, oh crap. So it doesn't take everybody all the time, right? But it does take somebody to be there all the time, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've gotten phone calls from irate city council people because people from power were calling them about an issue.
Yeah. Can you tell your people to stop calling us?
Yeah, stop calling my line, tying up my phone lines.
I'm already voting for it. I already voted for it. Why y'all harassing me? Because we didn't want you to forget.
Yeah. So no, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think you need both, right? And I think this is often the challenge that we have is that sometimes we are willing to tolerate one, but not willing to tolerate the other one. And I think if people don't see masses of people constantly out in the streets, then they're like, oh, nobody's doing anything. It's just, I always crack up when I hear people are like, the faith community is not out here. And I'm like who, what? The faith community doesn't care about Black Lives Matter. I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, just because your clergy person is not out there doesn't mean that there aren't a bunch of us that are already out there doing that work and have been doing that work for a very long time. So I'm always amused by that. But I think people's perception, sometimes people's reality is not necessarily, or perception becomes their reality, and they don't really even know what's happening on the ground. And how people are moving and shaking. They're like, I haven't heard about Power doing anything. And yet the week before, Power had, a bunch of meetings with council, state reps, state senators, the governor's office. But some of that stuff is not public knowledge because we're doing the work of organizing at that moment, right? Trying to learn and figure out what's going on. It's not, I get a kick out of this, actually, when people come to us all the time. They're like, I don't understand how you do what you do. Well, it's because you got to get on the inside and learn. There's a whole science behind what we do. There's a science behind it, folks. And you have to learn that science and understand how to be able to move the machine of government. Anyway.
Yeah, no, but you're right. It is not an accident, and it takes a lot of dedication. And yet, again, so even with our clergy colleagues, I don't even, look. So we have really been fortunate to forge some deep relationships in Philadelphia with some of the leaders of some of the largest congregations. But again, some of them, it's like, look, we're not going to worry you about every single little meeting. But if we can trust you to show up in moments where we really need like that, where we need the voice of a Pastor Waller, I mean, I'll tell you, to just watch him in this last cycle has been really important and deep. But, again, it's like, I'm not going to bother, our friend Alan to show up at like just a hearing. But when you need him, to know that you can call him, and it's like, and to know that there are people who have actually vetted this stuff, have studied it and worked on it, and we have developed that kind of trust that we're not going to put you in a situation where you get embarrassed. Because we know what it, we don't know what it is, I should say, to lead a 14,000 member congregations and what comes with that. So you have to respect what that person has to lose. And if you don't, so there has to be a lot of trust. So again, it's the same thing with activists. We're not going to call you for every single thing, but when we call you, we appreciate when you show up, and it's all of this working together. It's not just the simple sound bite or the one little flashy thing, as Tawanda said on social media this morning. It's not trendy activism.
Yeah.
It's not trendy. It's the down, dirty, grassroots, like the 2-hour call I was on yesterday, just talking about all these policing issues with Live Free and a ton of volunteers who work this stuff like they get paid.
Yeah.
Hey, Will Mega is on, and he wants to talk about some of this just because we talked about Kaepernick, and Kaepernick is a Kappa, and Will thinks that's the only fraternity around. But I will remind him that on December 4th, this week, on Friday, you will all celebrate your granddaddy. Good morning, grandson. Welcome to the show.
Well, actually, I didn't call it talk about Kaepernick at all, but the person answering the phone told me you guys said I had to talk about Kaepernick, so I understand you all paying homage. And I will also remind you, brother historian, that 1903 is before 1906. Alpha Kappa Nu, which eventually became Kappa Alpha Nu, which eventually became Kappa Alpha Psi, is the granddaddy of you. But getting back to your point around activism, and its unique involvement and tying it to both organizing behind the scenes. I'm thinking about both money. You're talking money and votes, and then when we talk about Kaepernick, we're talking about influence, right? And so I think when you tie those three together, it puts us on the right path. What I'm requesting of you two brothers, because I think you two actually have enough courage to do it, maybe not Mark. You weren't. Your co-host, I can't remember. Iota.
Stop. You were crazy yesterday on Facebook making jokes about my sweatshirt that I had on. Now, you just need to stop. Listen,
pretty nice.
You stop with your candy caning and stop that. Stop that. And by the way, the producer's name is Coesa. Just to let you know.
Okay, Sister Coesa. No disrespect to her at all. But you remember, brother, with all due respect and in all seriousness, Mary Mason, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Mary Mason used to keep a political scorecard on council, on the state reps, on Congress people, the mayor. And I think what you guys are doing on the inside, both around public policy, around initiatives, around the issues, especially during this pandemic time when, folks can't go to city council, and a lot of folks who are really interested in politics may not necessarily be that savvy using computers. I would really hope that you guys would consider keeping a political scorecard, letting us know what these politicians are doing and not doing, how they voted. Because, quite frankly, more people are listening to you and WURD than they're tuning into these council hearings. And so I think that would be really helpful, and I would appreciate if you all did that. And that was a cute sweatshirt. That was a cute sweatshirt yesterday, too. Really cute.
Sweatshirt.
Stop.
All right, Will Mega, who he is with his revisionist history. As an alpha, I love hearing Kappas try to make the argument that they're the first fraternity. Look, no shade to anybody. I love all Black Greek letter organizations, but there's only one first. And I mean, it's universally acknowledged by everybody except certain members of KA Psi for some reason, but it's all good. It's all love. But listen, I mean, to his point, Bishop, we talked about this before, right? About scorecards. And sometimes there are some, because we're a C3 organization, certain kind of things that we can, because we've actually talked about this even in elections, right?
Yeah.
But I do like the idea of keeping, literally like a report card is what we talked about, how we grade, members of elected office around certain issues. We've only talked about it during elections. We haven't talked about it doing it just as an ongoing piece, but that's fascinating.
That's actually a great idea. And I do think people need to know what their political leaders are doing on a regular basis, right? And how it relates to their community. If we were to keep scorecards on decisions that are made in council or state house that impact black community, whether it's for or against, I think that that would actually be very helpful. So, Will, I'm going to give you credit. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. I don't like your colors, but it's a great idea, and I just want to say that. So just to let you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, and to have something like that in real time, right? I mean, now listen, I will say this as well about activism and organizing. If you know, there is a cost associated with it, and a lot of times people think this happens and it's just happening. But you know, thanks to largely foundations and grants that come from other places and some grassroots funding, you know, these kind of things become available. But to have a full-time organizer whose job would be to keep in real time, because listen, let's be honest. You know, where someone is today, it could like slide tomorrow and it can go up tomorrow. And so I think that you need real-time information that is constantly monitoring what your city council is doing, what your state legislature is doing, and what the federal government is doing, because every one of those levels is absolutely important. I mean, even down to the neighborhood level. I mean, people in the community need to know, you know, is the person that we have, you know, is the person we've elected actually doing what we sent them to do? Right? Because you don't usually see them until like it's the next time they got to run for office.
That's right. Absolutely. I mean, that is part of the problem with the political cycle and the way that it works, right? That especially with these 4-year terms, that folk don't, well, state reps only have 2-year terms, congressional leaders have 2-year terms, and actually you see them in the streets far more frequently than you do council or state senators or, you know, governors for that matter, because they can go 2.5 years without really having to deal with the folk. And then right before election time, they really begin to speed back up again. But part of the fact of organizing is that we bring the people to them and put the people into their face. Our job is to get the people closest to the pain and make sure that their stories are being heard by political leaders. Not that we're telling their stories, that the people themselves are telling their own stories about what they need from their political leaders to be able to create change. So, you know, it's strategic. It's very strategic. It is, like I said, there's a science to it. You know, when you see us out in the street, it's only because we're bringing to a crescendo the work that we've already done for a long period of time behind the scenes. You know, this summer with the uprising, I kind of chuckled about this, you know, when council started, you know, talking about all the changes that they were going to do regarding policing. And I remember that we've been doing this work for 5 years already and laying the groundwork for a lot of the transformation and change. Long before other groups came to the scene to start having this conversation, we were already having this conversation. As a matter of fact, one of the first town halls Mayor Kenny did after he got elected in his first term was a town hall that we did at Stop and Frisk at a church in North Philadelphia that, you know, was kind of explosive. So,
man, you're
triggering me. Organizing. 500 people showed up at that church to go see Mayor Kenny, to have a conversation with him and Commissioner Ross about policing. So when we get to today and the work that's happening around police oversight and happening around these other issues around policing, I remember that it's 5 years of organizing that got us there. Now, eventually other folk came on board, but, you know, 5 years it took to get to that place.
Yeah. I mean, and again, we don't want to seem like it's all us, because there are a lot of organizations that have been working on some of the same thing, even predating when power was started. And yet, you know, again, it is, you know, it is systematic, it is long-term, it is a marathon, it is not a sprint. We got to take a quick break. And Wanda put in Facebook Live that the Black Women's Leadership Council actually keeps a scorecard. And so that may be something you may want to look at as well. We'll be right back on the other side of this break. We got to talk about France, because apparently their police are feeling like they want to get in on some of this too. We'll be right back.
Man, this coronavirus has us all moving differently.
No doubt. Like washing our hands more and social distancing with the crew. I'm always telling people to give me 6 feet. We're here, Grandma.
There's my babies. Good to see you got your mask on.
Wear a mask. Stop the spread. For more information, visit www.pa.gov/COVID.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Always Best Care is a great place to work.
Flexibility.
Leadership. Purpose.
Great benefits.
There's never a dull moment.
Diversity.
Inclusion.
Compasión.
We love our jobs. If you're looking for a great place to work, You can join our compassionate Team Green. You can apply online at teamgreenabc.com or call 267-909-9248.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
I ain't no better than you, and you ain't no better than me. But we all have something in common. We all are in species, seeds of God's creation.
Tune in to Messages in the Music every Friday night with Joey T, midnight to 6 a.m. right here on WURD.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good morning. This report sponsored by the Empire State Building. We have delays building on the Schuylkill Expressway westbound, getting JM University through the Vine, through that construction. Eastbound side, not bad yet. Westbound Vine, Little Slow Parkway through the Schuylkill Expressway. Southbound 95, jam Cotman down through Bridge, through that construction. Further south, Little Slow Allegheny through Girard. Northbound, no major problems there. PA Turnpike, Blue Route 476, still in pretty good shape. 55 northbound, getting a bit busy. Not Deptford in the 42. Looking for a safe way to have an adventure? The Empire State Building Observatory is open. Join them now and enjoy great outdoor open air 360-degree views. Secure your reservation today at EmpireStateBuilding.com. Open daily. Availability is limited. For more traffic information, log on to SigAlert.com. Jim Bachman with your Philadelphia area traffic.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Hey, WURD family. Tune in to WURD Radio Friday, December 4th for a virtual empowerment experience at 1 p.m. honoring radio icon Cody Anderson. WURD Radio's 5th annual empowerment experience celebrating the history and impact of black radio in Philadelphia will take place virtually on WURD Radio's 96.1 and 900 AM. And you can also watch this program via WURD TV through Facebook Live, YouTube, and WURDRadio.com. The virtual event will be honoring radio icon Cody Anderson with remarkable presentations by his son Bill Anderson, Kenny Gamble, Yolanda Van Zandt, and more. The virtual experience will begin at 1 p.m. and feature a virtual roundtable with WURD host and Cody Anderson, music, poetry, reflections, and more. This virtual event is free. Registration is required. For more information and to register, go to WURDRadio.com. That's going to be a great event. I so deeply appreciate Cody. In my early days, when I first took over Urban Insights, Cody would be on right before us with Laborers Live, and I always appreciated him challenging me. He's like, who you got on the show today? What are you talking about? How are you posing the questions to them? And in many ways, he was teaching me without actually telling me he was going to teach me how to do radio. So I always appreciated that. And he always stopped me. We've had great conversations throughout the years that we've been on WURD now, and just learned so much from him. Both listening as for years to him on the very stations that he was on, and then actually meeting him in person and having a couple of sit-down conversations with him about radio, about politics, and about the world at large. So please join WURD on Thursday at 1 to have a conversation about Cody Anderson and about black radio in Philadelphia. It's important. It's a very important vehicle in our city.
Cody is the man, that is absolutely certain, and do all of the props that he's going to receive and all the accolades. So listen, man, you know, this activism thing is not a local thing. I mean, you know, for me, I continue to view this struggle and this movement as one of the diaspora. That's why I don't like getting drawn into the ADOS, you know, debate about, you know, those of us who are direct descendants in America, because I just think it is just a ridiculous, let me just say it this way. To think that what happens to us is because we were born in America or somewhere else misses the larger point of how white supremacy works. That it does not care where you were born. It does not care that, you know, your ancestors came from the Caribbean, South America, or Europe, or, you know, the continental United States of America, or one of the many nations in Africa. That's not how white supremacy operates.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want evidence of that, you know, and why this organizing and activism we've been talking about all morning is important, all you have to do is look to the French. Now, France traditionally has been a place of refuge for black folk, especially black Americans. 100 years ago, it's where our artists and our musicians and our great thinkers, fled the United States and spent the roaring 20s and the 30s trying to be free of a racist society that was, that would not let them do the kind of freedoms that they had in places like Paris. And yet we recognize even today that even France is not free from this kind of thing. Michael Feckler, an African Frenchman who is a music producer, was beaten. I mean, severely beaten. I posted the video on Facebook. So it's very violent content. So if that kind of stuff triggers you, you may not want to look at it. But they're wailing on this guy. These cops in France, because he was not wearing a mask, and they came into his office, into his studio. I mean, it's just like they threw tear gas on him for not wearing a mask, you all, right? And at the same time, the president of France, Macron, is pushing and advancing legislation that would make it illegal to film the police.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because he said, well, it's to film the police with the intent to do them harm.
To do them harm?
Bro.
Really?
We ain't got enough time today. We ain't got enough time today. I'm telling you, I'm like, what, to do them harm. So in Macron's world, I guess, the people who took the video would have been the ones who were guilty, not the cops that the video shows beating a defenseless man for not wearing a mask in his own office and tear gassing him.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, I saw the video. It was pretty ruthless. That was brutal. And then, I mean, the police are suspended right now. They're on administrative leave that did this and potentially up on charges. But, I think, part of the problem, the media of the moment that we get too, is that people start to get ideas from other places about what they can and cannot do. And I wonder if the police over in France are starting to get hyped up, because while they do like black Americans, they do not like African immigrants over there. So that's a big challenge that they have. A lot of European countries have a disdain for African immigrants that are coming into Europe. And so I wonder if that's, part of what's happening in all this as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it is certainly, when you think about the moment that we're living in, it's not like what happened to George Floyd never happened before. I mean, if anybody who's black in America, anybody who's black in the diaspora has a George Floyd story in their neighborhood, I mean, the reason that Do the Right Thing, the film by Spike Lee in the late 1980s, resonated so deeply with black folk is because of how real it was.
That's right.
Radio Raheem was a fictional character, but everybody, I don't care what city you come from or little town you come from, had a Radio Raheem who the police overreacted, choked to death, shot to death, beat to death. And so it's not like, we have not known these things. And so in this moment where now we have the availability of cell phones as cameras, and as my man said in the song Childish Gambino, this is a celly, it's a tool. It is. It quickly turns from a communication device to a tool for activism. And what would America be right now without the ability to film the police? I mean, I think France is going in the absolute wrong direction, and it's disappointing for a nation that has typically been viewed as one that has been on the side of the cause and issues of black folk. But again, look, it shows how widespread this conservative backlash that gave rise to a Donald Trump is. It is not isolated. And don't think for a moment, y'all, that when Trump leaves in January, that spirit is gone.
No, I mean, actually, the spirit is alive and well around the world.
Yeah.
And I keep trying to tell people all the time, they keep looking and saying, oh, America, this. I'm like, no, there's a whole lot of countries that have this problem right now. Actually,
Germany.
France is one of them. Germany. Well, I mean, Angela Merkel's still there, but their spirit is rising there. When you take a look at Boris Johnson over in England, in Great Britain, there's a whole lot of these kind of despots in some ways that are rising up, even in countries, we look at India, the Philippines, places like that with similar problems that they are having right now with their political leaders. So this is not unique to America. It's something in the air. I could get deeply spiritual about it right now, but I won't do that for this moment.
But you're right. It is. It's in the air. It's in the water. You know what I mean? And it's in the culture. This idea that the quote unquote northern hemisphere is supposed to dominate the southern hemisphere. And that the right place for those of us who look like we do is to be subject. That is a thought that is not just from the 19th and 20th century, but there are a lot of people who harbor that right now.
Right.
And and that's why, again, now let's just bring it all the way full circle, why the election in Georgia is so important and why there's such a concentrated effort to disenfranchise black voters. Brian Kemp would not be the governor of Georgia had he not used his power as Secretary of State to change the rules and purge the rolls as Stacey Abrams was chomping at the bit. Stacey Abrams should have been the governor of Georgia right now. And now Kemp is, as the governor, could not work his magic again, and Georgia flipped, right? And so again, this pushback is as people are finding their voice and finding their place against this oppressive spirit that wants to keep us, quote unquote, in our place. But look, the genie is out the bottle. He ain't going back. And so, again, whether it is a massive protest or whether it is showing up at these more routine kind of things, we have got to continue to push this agenda forward because we who believe in freedom cannot rest.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. The world is in a very strange place right now. And I think it's just been a revelatory time of us waking up to the realities that are 6 square blocks and not the whole world, that there is a spirit of this age that is going through something and doing something, but that we're going to see great transformation and change, hopefully, in the days and weeks and years to come. And part of that will happen because we choose to organize and we choose to have a say in our collective destiny. That is what ultimately organizing is all about, having a say in our collective destiny. So whether we can organize and get Colin Kaepernick back in the game, whether we can change public policy and social understanding, whether we are actually able to push out demagogues and despots from their perches for power, it will all come down ultimately to us. We thank you for listening to the Power Hour today with Mark Kelly and Dwayne Royster. Thank you, Kwesa, for everything that you do, for keeping it together for us. Thanks, Will Mega, for giving a call in. To all those folk that are watching us online today, we deeply appreciate it. Those that are listening through the air, those that are checking us out through YouTube Live. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. to bring you the latest in the news, happenings around Philadelphia, and, of course, our opinion. Do me a favor. Go out, change the damn world, because if you don't, nobody else will. Peace.
Weight on my shoulders, a bullet in my gun.